Top 10 Most Dangerous Prisoners in the World, 2017. You are about to watch the most horrible prisoners in the world. Viewer discretion is advised. Number 10. Zacarias Moussaoui, one of the terrorists behind 9/11. Zacarias Moussaoui, a 46-year-old French native serving life in prison for his role in the 9/11 attacks. Moussaoui pleaded guilty in federal court to conspiring to kill citizens of the U.S. as part of the September 11th attacks. In 2006, he withdrew his guilty plea, saying he was not involved in the 9/11 conspiracy, but was part of another al-Qaeda plot which was to occur after September 11th. He's serving a life sentence at ADX Maximum Security Prison in Colorado without parole. Number 9. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. Kaczynski got a promising start. He was accepted into Harvard at the tender age of 17 and studied advanced mathematics at the Ivy League University. Between 1978 and 1995, however, he mailed 16 bombs to universities and facilities across the country, killing 3 people and injuring 23 others. This sent him straight to the top of the FBI's list of most wanted. Kaczynski, now 72, was apprehended largely because of his own brother, David. He's now serving a life sentence without parole. Number 8. Larry Hoover, the GD's kingpin. In the early 70s, Larry Hoover took over what would soon become Chicago's largest, most violent gang, the Gangster Disciples. By the mid-90s, the formerly disorganized gang rose to the top and became a multi-state drug cartel, functioning almost like a legitimate corporation. Remarkably, Hoover orchestrated much of this transformation from behind bars. He was convicted and sentenced to 150 to 200 years in prison in 1973 for the murder of William Young, who was reportedly stealing money from the GDs and is unlikely to get out of prison alive. Number 7. Michael Swango, a.k.a. Dr. Death. Dr. Michael Swango is a vicious serial killer known as the doctor who poisoned up to 60 patients. Also known as Dr. Death, Swango admitted that he fatally poisoned 3 patients at a hospital in Long Island. He had a history of demented behavior according to his medical records. Beginning in 1983, Swango came under scrutiny for the death of an elderly neurosurgery patient who experienced respiratory failure shortly after a nurse saw Dr. Swango injecting unknown liquids into her IV. Over the next 15 years, there were other fatalities linked to Swango. 5 patients at Southern Illinois University, 5 at Ohio State Medical Center, 5 at a Veterans Administration hospital in Northport, New York, and more than 20 people in Zimbabwe. There is no track of how many victims Dr. Death had. The number of victims is between 4 and 60, but he is the only one who truly knows. He was found guilty of poisoning his patients and was sentenced to life without parole. Number 6. Umar Farouk Abdulmutallab, the underwear bomber. Umar was a Muslim extremist who studied engineering at University College London before traveling to Yemen to study Arabic in August 2009. There, he organized a terrorist attack on Christmas Day on Northwest Airlines Flight 253 with the help of terrorists associated with al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. As the plane en route from Amsterdam approached its final destination of Detroit on December 25, 2009, then 23 years old, he went to the bathroom and planted a homemade explosive device in his underwear. The bomb malfunctioned, sparking nothing more than a small fire and leaving Umar with 1st and 2nd degree burns on his legs. U.S. Customs and Border Protection arrested him at Detroit Metropolitan Airport. He's now serving a life sentence at ADX Maximum Security Prison without the possibility of parole. Number 5. Eric Rudolph, Atlanta Olympics bomber. Before his arrest in 2003, Eric Rudolph was on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list for orchestrating a series of anti-gay and anti-abortion motivated bombings in Georgia and Alabama. On July 27, 1996, Rudolph bombed the Centennial Olympic Park in Atlanta during the Summer Olympics, killing 1 and injuring 111 people. Rudolph later released a statement explaining he planned the attack to embarrass the U.S. government for allowing abortion. Abortion is murder, and when the regime in Washington legalized, sanctioned, and legitimized this practice, they forfeited their legitimacy and moral authority to govern, the statement said. Rudolph spent more than 5 years as a fugitive until he was finally caught digging in a dumpster for food in North Carolina. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms without parole. Number 4. Terry Nichols, the Oklahoma City bomber. On April 19, 1995, a bomb killed 168 people in Oklahoma City's Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. That bomb was planted in a nearby truck by Terry Nichols and Timothy McVeigh. Nichols met McVeigh while serving in the military, and the two, who shared a hatred of government and of black people, became best friends. Nichols became increasingly radical in his anti-government views, and he attempted to renounce his U.S. citizenship twice in 1992. When McVeigh was discharged from the Army in late 1991, the two lived together off and on. One night, they were watching TV at Nichols' farmhouse in Michigan when news broke that the ATF, Army, and FBI had ambushed a religious compound in Waco, Texas. After that, an enraged Nichols and McVeigh began plotting the revenge on the federal government. McVeigh was arrested the day of the bombing, tried, and sentenced to death. He was executed in June 2001. Nichols turned himself in shortly after the explosion and is serving life in prison without the possibility of parole. Number 3. Michael Rudkin. Michael Rudkin, a former prison correction officer, admitted to not only having sex with an inmate, but also conspiring with that inmate to kill his wife. 10 months later, according to court documents, Rudkin solicited the help of fellow inmates to find someone on the outside to kill his ex-wife, her new boyfriend, his former inmate fling, and a federal investigator. He was sentenced to 90 years in prison and set to be released in 2099. Number 2. Thomas Silverstein. Thomas Silverstein, to this day, is considered one of ADX's most dangerous inmates. In 1980, he was convicted of killing 2 fellow inmates and a prison guard in the United States Penitentiary in Leavenworth, Kansas, while he was serving time for armed robberies. Silverstein was moved to ADX, and his earliest theoretical date of release is November 2, 2095. He's currently suing the Federal Bureau of Prisons for the decades he's spending in isolation, calling it torture. Number 1. Ramzi Youssef, Al-Qaeda mastermind. Ramzi Youssef is one of the most dangerous prisoners in the world. He is a member of the Muslim extremists' terror organization Al-Qaeda. He is responsible for the murder of 6 people and injury of over 1,000 due to the bombing in February 26, 1993. Youssef Ramzi and his 3 friends from Al-Qaeda planned a 1,000-pound bomb in the garage below the World Trade Center. Responsible for this horrible terrorist act and many more, he also conspired to explode 12 U.S. jetliners in midair. While in court, he stated, "Yes, I am a terrorist and proud of it." Youssef now serves 240 years, which is the total of the life expectancies of the 6 people murdered in his terrorist attack. Sadly, he couldn't receive a death penalty because it was illegal at the time of his sentencing. But it is very unlikely he will survive his 240 years sentence. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please support our channel by sharing it with your friends. See you next time.